Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of full-on reality therapy for personal, business, and investing success with your host, Ron Phillips, because somebody's got to tell it like it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. Ron Phillips here. It seems that the new year is bringing all kinds of real estate news. This is this is an interesting time. I don't think I've ever really experienced this much news making in real estate since the big old crash. But we got some stuff to talk about today. I mean, this is really interesting stuff. The first, we just talked about Trump. We're going to talk about him again. He wants now to let people use their 401ks to buy a house. So take money out of your 401k. There's some nuance to this, though. It sounds, interesting and good, maybe on the surface. But this is an interesting thing. It basically removes the 10% early withdrawal penalty. But it doesn't, at least in its current thought, eliminate the taxes that you would have to pay on it. And so I wonder how in the world this would be better than just taking a 401k loan that we already have access to. Anyway, there's some other pretty interesting things. Right now, because 401k rules require congressional action since the workplace plans are regulated by the IRS and they're subject to ERISA, Congress has to make these changes, so he'll have to get a whole bunch of people on board with him. They routinely do this, though. I mean, Congress, they've made the hardship withdrawal rules looser, most recently, I think. And so they're always doing stuff to these plans. I find it interesting that they do these things to 401k plans, but there's never anything done with, the biggest scam of all time, which is our Social Security benefits. Yeah, let me early withdraw that and buy a house, and then we'll talk. That's never going to happen. They don't have any money, so that's never going to happen. But there is another part to this, which I think is the more interesting part of this. So the current plan, as previewed by Kevin Hassett, is the second part is for a way for people to actually be able to put the down payment money that they take out back into their accounts as equity in the property they buy. Now that is a unique thought, because in today's system, there's no mechanism to be able to do that. Those of you who've been watching and listening to the show for a long time, you probably already know that there is a self-directed IRA. There's also self-directed 401ks for people who don't have employees. While they say there's really not a mechanism for that, there kind of is a mechanism. They just would have to adopt it into the other system. That would be very complicated, though, because most of these are run by companies. And, the company plans really don't facilitate this kind of transaction. But let me just state that again. What they want to do is have people have the ability to put the money back into their account by way of the equity in the property that they buy. Now, I think that part of it is actually a relatively good idea. I don't know, functionally, I don't know how they would do that, but that's really, really cool. So in this article, it says that the 401k system is not designed for people to hold personal assets, not real estate, crypto. Contributions are regulated. And as you know, any of you who have used a self-directed IRA before, only thing you can buy with respect to real estate is investment real estate. So it has to be an investment real estate. You can't have personal use of the home. So that piece of it is actually really interesting. I don't know how functionally they would do any of this stuff, but the idea and the thought is is a unique one. I don't even know how they would let people put money back in because there's really no mechanism for that. Like even if they had the cash, I don't know how they would let them put the cash back in. That seems much easier to do than, putting the equity back in. Anyway, this is actually an interesting concept. This though is meant. So when they talk about this, like affordability is the buzzword of the year, right? Affordability. This will do nothing for affordability. And as a matter of fact, it may, in the event they actually get this done, this may make affordability worse. Because again, I'll remind you, we don't have enough homes. I don't care what guru down the street says. He says that if there's this school of thought out there that if we had enough homes, well then that we already have enough homes, we just don't have enough buyers. And the reason we don't have enough buyers is because they can't afford. Okay, but that doesn't eliminate the buyers. We still have the buyers. They can't afford the properties. And they can't afford the properties that are being built. And the properties that are being built aren't being built in large enough numbers. And the builders who are building can't build affordable because there's no money in it. So we still have this problem. In the event that you give people money, access to money, which would make it so that they could potentially afford one of these houses, all it's going to do is put more pressure on a system that doesn't have enough supply already. So it could potentially make it worse, not better. If they don't actually figure out how to let people put the money back, then of course you're going to have people who are at some point trying to retire. They're not going to have the money that they thought they had in their 401k. And that in and of itself could be a problem. Now, in this article, this is actually kind of funny because they actually go through withdrawals. They go through here and say, hey, if you withdraw the money, this is what you're missing out on is this, this steady 10% growth rate year over year you'd be missing out on. And then I think to myself, okay, that's fair. Except for that a house that you're leveraged into at probably less than 10%, if we're being honest, but let's just call it 20%. Let's just say they put 20% down on the property. That's a 5 times multiple. Even if the appreciation rate were 3%, that by itself, that is a 15% cash on cash return over time. So I don't know that this 10% that they're talking about here in the article, that anybody's missing out on anything. Because even at a very modest appreciation rate, they'll beat the 10% growth in the stock market. And then, of course, there's tax benefits for owning that property, even personally, not talking about investment property at all. The rest of this content is just, it's the same stale investor garble that we've seen for years. And so I'm not going to bore you with it. But suffice to say that of all of the things I've heard recently, this is one that actually seems to make a little bit of sense. I simply don't think this has any. I still have heard nothing from the government that's going to help with affordability. The reality of the situation is, folks, that they have so inflated things that it's if they come down, it's going to take a long time for that to happen, in my opinion. And they've slowed the rate of inflation, and that's good. That means things aren't going up at the same clip. But it doesn't mean that they're coming down in price. Some things have. Gasoline has. Gasoline does make most things less expensive when it's less expensive. But all you have to do is live to know that things really haven't come down that much. Housing hasn't come down that much except for in a few areas of the country. And I don't know. Call me crazy. I don't see that that's going to happen anytime soon. And our government, who keeps preaching both sides of the aisle, keep preaching affordability, they have done nothing, literally nothing, to help with affordable housing. Nothing. So I don't think these plans are really going to help most people. But I do like the fact that they're putting out some bold things that most people haven't thought of. Boy, we're going to talk about bold things on the next show, I think. So stay tuned for next week when we talk about something else bold. Not bold and the beautiful, like, of years past. This is bold and ugly. So I will see you next week. Until then, get out there and make something happen.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.